Hello everyone, Christoph the Polish Geek, and I'm back with another movie review, and I'm going to review Wicked Part 1. But before I get to it, I have to say that I've seen the movie yesterday evening because 2 days ago, 22nd of November, it was actually my birthday, so I hung out with some friends at first, and then my family visited, and we went to a family dinner for my birthday, so it was a pretty good time, although I turned 30, yeah, I feel old. So yes, it was my birthday on the 22nd of November, and then yesterday, 23rd, I went to see Wicked Part 1. And before I give thoughts on the movie, I will first give you some of my knowledge about Wicked, because newsflash, I probably already said in my trailer reaction to it, but again, newsflash, I haven't actually seen the Broadway play. I've been hearing, like, a good friend of mine from Mexico, whom I knew when I lived in the United States. So yeah, my good friend from Mexico is a huge fan of the Broadway play, and he was very much looking forward to Wicked movie. Like, I haven't asked his thoughts on it yet. Like, I'm going to actually, when he sees the movie. I don't know if he has already, but if he has, I'll totally ask his thoughts and how exactly faithful it is to the Broadway musical, because again, all I know about Wicked is that it's apparently some Wicked Witch of the West origin story. I mean, it is sort of, now that I don't watch the movie, but I'm basically sharing my thoughts of what I knew before I seen the movie. So I did know that it was some origin story of all the witches of Oz, and I did know that they were going to make Wicked Witch of the West sympathetic, like, so. And I did know it was a musical, but other than that, I didn't really know much. I just knew that this good friend of mine from Mexico was a huge fan of Wicked. So, yes, I'm totally going to ask his thoughts, how faithful it is exactly to the Broadway musical. And now, I'll tell you some of my thoughts on the Wizard of Oz franchise. Like, I have to say, the Wizard of Oz is never something I've been, like, religiously obsessed with. Like, I do respect the old 30s MGM classic. I mean, it's a classic movie. It's considered like one of the masterpieces of cinema, and I'm not going to hide, it is objectively a very well-made, good movie, and I do like the songs of it. We're off to see the wizard, but it never like felt something particularly special to me. I mean, it's certainly enjoyable to watch one from, as I said, from time to time, and I respect it as a classic, but it certainly was never like any one of my favorite movies, not even close. I mean, again, I highly respect the movie, and it is certainly good and enjoyable to watch, but again, it never was particularly special to me, and I am actually in the minority, but I actually very much prefer the unofficial sequel, Return to Oz, although Return to Oz is actually far closer to the original books than the classic. Like, the only thing that really it has in common with the classic is the ruby slippers, because in the books those are like some silver shoes actually. Yep, when I was a kid I did actually read the first few Oz books, I remember that actually, and yes, I actually prefer the book over the movie, because a lot of people don't even know anything about the book. They just, because this 30s MGM classic basically completely made some people forget what the book was, but I actually think that the book is better, and there are some actually interesting things that the book had that the movie didn't have, like when the witch gets melted by the water, like the classic movie, that's basically the end of the movie, but in the original book, the journey actually keeps going, and there is even an interesting story how the Cowardly Lion fights a giant spider and becomes a king of animals. Some really interesting story, but it seems like basically almost every adaptation completely forgot this even happened. Oh well, we really went off on a tangent though. Let's now talk about Wicked Part 1, because truly we've really gone off the tangent here. First, I will say, I remember how my friend from Mexico was very much hating Oz the Great and Powerful, and I don't blame him honestly, because Oz the Great and Powerful, like this is an entirely different story. That said, when I was hearing how the Wicked Witch of the West was made sympathetic, well, little sad. It's not that just she's sympathetic. She's basically a hero in this movie, and the wizard is a villain. And it's basically I heard from some people saying, and yeah, that's what it seems to be basically, that the Wicked Witch of the West is actually a good person, while the whole idea of her being this evil was basically a propaganda created by the wizard. Like, basically, Wicked is basically like a what-if story. What if the Wicked Witch of the West was a good person all along, while the wizard was a real villain? And I already said it before, I've often said on my channel, that I really hate this whole misunderstood, tragic villain trope. Like, I hate the trope. Like, let villains be villains. I hate this whole sympathetic villains, misunderstood trope. That said, I do know that this is basically the first story that ever did it, and this is the story that started the trend, so in that case, I can actually give it some slack here. As long as I consider this story as a basically what-if alternate universe and not an actual canon to the Wizard of Oz, then I think because of that, I can actually give it some slack. Like, even though in general I don't like the whole misunderstood villain trope. But in that case, as I said, this is the first story that ever did it, and I consider just like a basically what-if alternative universe, so in that case I can give it some slack. And the first positive I have to say about this movie is that the Land of Oz truly feels like otherworldly, magical here. I will say that it's obvious how big the budget and production is. Like, there's just something gigantic about this scope, and truly the whole production is spectacular, and the Land of Oz truly feels very immersive. Like, as I said, and it feels so large in scope and all that. I don't think there has been such a immersive production ever since like works like Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter. Of course, this movie is nowhere near as good as either of those, but then again, I've always been a gigantic fan of both Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter, so I guess that might be a personal bias, but yes, the Land of Oz truly feels big, immersive in scope, and this is spectacular. And what I also love about it, I said it in my trailer reaction, and I have to say that I was very wrong actually, because in the trailer I said how this looks so similar to Oz the Great and Powerful, but I have to say, I was wrong. My bad, I take it back. Like, Oz the Great and Powerful was a pure CGI fest. This truly are all practical effects whenever they can be used. Like, so I also have to give a credit for that, because all the sets and all that are all practical and wonderful, and they add so much to the immersion of the Land of Oz. And as for the story itself, I will say it was interesting to keep me invested, and does make me want to see Wicked Part 2, because I am interested now to see where the story is going. But if I'm being honest, as I said, this is certainly not the type of movie that I'll be probably rewatching a lot of times, because there are plenty of movies so amazing that I can just watch them over and over again, but this one certainly is not one of those. But then again, I think this might more actually have to do with personal preference and the fact that I admittedly think I'm not actually target demographic of this movie, but the story of the movie is about Wicked Witch of the West and Glinda, the Good Witch of the North, South, don't remember, but yes, it's about the Wicked Witch of the West and the Good Witch Glinda, and how they're both university students, and the Wicked Witch of the West is all green, and even though deep down she's a good person, she isn't liked by anybody, and she's bullied just for her appearance, so she isn't evil, she's misunderstood, the trope that I've just talked about. And then at first Glinda doesn't like her and she bullies her like this typical like pretty high school girl alpha bitch, like, but then over time they develop friendship and all that. And so yes, the chemistry and the friendship between the Wicked Witch of the West and Glinda, I think, was very well done, and I think Ariana Grande especially did a really phenomenal job as Glinda. And the actress that played the Wicked Witch of the West, I also have to say she did a good job, even though I did hear that she apparently did say some cringy things insulting fans, although I try not to engage in that. It only gets me angry whenever I hear of another self-centered Hollywood actor just insulting fans for no reason. But at least as an actress, I say she's done a also pretty good job, but at the same time I think Ariana Grande as Glinda very much stole the whole thing, for me at least. What I also have to talk about though, and this is probably the biggest thing, because this is after all a Broadway musical, so probably the most important thing to talk about are actually the songs. And what I think of the songs? Some were pretty good and catchy. I actually ended up really enjoying some of the songs, but some I felt like did feel a bit off. I probably predict that they're certainly much better than the Broadway musical, but here you have different people singing them, so they're maybe simply not as good as they are in the Broadway musical. Kind of like how the comparison I would like to make is live action adaptations of Disney classics. Like almost the songs, the original animated versions are generally spectacular, while all the songs in their live action remakes are just so bland and soulless. But I say songs in this movie are actually much better than live action renditions of Disney classics. I wouldn't say they're as good as the animated classic songs, but they're certainly better than their live action renditions. And as I said, some of the songs were pretty good here. Others I felt like did feel a little bit off, but then again, as I said, I predict that they all probably sound much better in the Broadway musical. And do I now want to check out the original Broadway musical? I do actually. I am actually a little bit curious about it. I mean, I admit, I've always been curious about it since, as I said, my very good friend loves it, so I was always curious about the Broadway musical, but that movie made me even more curious about it. So yes, I do want now even more to check out Broadway musicals. So if I ever have an opportunity, I certainly will go ahead and check it out. But for now, Wicked Part 1, I say, is good enough to make me want to check out Part 2 as well as the musical, but at the same time, at the end of the day, I don't think I am really a target audience for this movie, because this will certainly not be on my favorite movie of the year list, and it's certainly not the movie I'll be going ahead and rewatching a lot. But I'm glad I've seen it, and I'm certainly going to see Part 2 when it comes out. So thank you guys for checking out the review of Wicked Part 1, and press the like button. Please subscribe to this channel, and I will talk to you soon in another video. Talk to you then. Bye.